So to all the speakers of tonight, good karma, please. Everybody's enjoying it. This one. Manage your destiny by becoming more aware of the universal law of karma. Actually, it is a part of the total sequel of presentations about spirituality. And spirituality is all about knowing energy flows and knowing how to act according to energy flows. Actually, you see here the roulette table, and some people think that whole life is like a roulette. You don't know what tomorrow is happening, and it might be good or bad. Some people say, no, things are predestined. Can I ask you a question? Who think that some things in life are predestined, you cannot change? That means all the other people say that everything is open and you have all the power to change. Or there are people who say it's in the middle. Well, I have the same belief actually, because it's always, the truth is in the middle, so it's both. Let's talk about the law of karma, which is related to a previous presentation I made, the universal flow of the figure 8. And the figure 8 is the Tao, which Lao Tzu calls the Tao in the universe. It's yin-yang, which is flowing everywhere. And last time I made a presentation that this flow is also within your own body. So I would like to answer a few questions. Actually, this presentation is only 15 minutes of a 3-hour presentation. So I can only touch the surface, sorry. But at least my aim is to create some awareness so that you maybe think that, well, I would like to know more about it and start to read about it. Then already my mission is accomplished. First of all, what is it and where does it come from? Where does it originate from? Does it influence me? Can I change it? Can I do something against it? Or am I a victim or can I control? And how can I neutralize it? The picture of the lady is from, she's called Madame Blavatsky. She was living in the 19th century. She was a daughter of a Russian high-level ranking officer in the army in a country now called Ukraine. And she likes traveling, and she likes other cultures. So she traveled around the world and a lot to Far East. And then she came back and founded in New York in 1875 the Theosophical Society. And that society, in almost every country in the world has an affiliation. And you can visit all kinds of schools in every country about Theosophical Society. Maybe you've heard about it. And if you didn't hear about Theosophical Society, there was a split off, and that was by Rudolf Steiner, the Anthroposophical Society. Maybe you've heard about that. And she introduced actually to the West all the thinking and the concepts of the East, the Far East. The concepts about reincarnation, the concepts about karma, for instance. And she wrote several books which have been translated all over the world, in 1 million copies, like Isis Unveiled, like The Secret Doctrine, etc. Actually, karma is a Sanskrit word for action. And if you know, action is always before a counteraction. Always after an action, and counteraction is coming. So it's cause and effect. But people think that karma is something from the Far East, which is not true at all. Because every culture and every religion has the same wording for karma. Let's say the wording is, what you don't want be done to yourself, don't do it to others. It's the golden rule, actually. And the Indian people, I've lived in America, the Indian people, Native Americans have that rule. People in South America have that rule, in everywhere in the world. So it's not just a Far East concept, karma. What is sometimes also misunderstood is an action. I do something wrong, and then karma is coming back to me. But it's also omission. It's also what you don't do. If you could prevent something bad happening, but you don't prevent it, then also you make karma. So it's not only action, but also omission. And finally, it's also physical and spiritual. And some things are related to the Bible. Also, you can see that Jesus says, well, it's not only the doing, but also the thinking. if you think in the wrong way, already you create karma. So it's not just that you kill somebody, but it is much more fine. And it's also positive and negative. Many people think about karma, it's always negative. It's bad karma, and I have, no, it's also positive. You can create positive karma. And luckily there are enough people in the world today who have enough positive karma to create a balance in the world. Otherwise we would have been worse off in the whole world. And actually, this is what you can see is the figure 8 flow. It's also the symbol of the lemniscaat, the symbol of eternity, which is also, like I said, flowing in your body. It's yin-yang. And it's actually, it's a coin. It's a coin, and you cannot split that coin. It's both sides you have. You can fold it open. If you fold it open, then you have this figure 8 flow, the lemniscaat. And think about it. There are two sides of the coin, but still it's one. And that's what everything in the universe is. Male, female, yin, yang, etc. All this kind of, it's not polarization. So don't misunderstand sometimes. The big misunderstanding is dualism. That's like good and bad. But they don't complement. This is a complementation. It's like male, female, yin, yang. They complement each other. That's a different concept. And as you can see, every smile you give, it's all shiny saying, will always come back to you. Maybe not for the person which you are smiling at this moment. Now, yes. But it can be maybe 1 year later, or it can be another person, but it will come back to you. And everything what you do will come back to you in the way how you did it. And there is, I will explain that later, a time frame. Karma influences everything and everybody throughout time and space. First of all, the illustration. It's maybe if you have physics, you've learned about communicating vessels. And everything in the universe is always trying to strive to a dynamic balance. If there's an imbalance, finally it always strives to get the balance again. And everything is flowing in the universe. Everything is vibrating. From the smallest nanoparticle to the biggest galaxy, everything is moving and flowing and vibrating. And it's energy flow. And karma is actually abuse of this energy flow or a blocking of the energy flow. Whether it's outside yourself or inside yourself. When it's a blocking of the energy flow inside yourself, you get disease. And you get all kinds of imbalances. But it's also when it's outside of yourself and you do something which is really wrong. It relates to reincarnation. So, and reincarnation is also something which people think it's something from the Far East. It's a concept of Hinduism and Buddhism. Not true. The early Christians believed in reincarnation. And apart from the Bible, there are many other books from the same period which are writing about reincarnation. For instance, the book of Enoch, etc. So it's also a universal concept. It's past and future. And karma is not only affecting persons, an individual person, but can also affect a total family or a civilization and even the whole earth. Well, there is actually this big discussion. It was in this, I think it was 16th century, when the great philosopher, Renaissance philosopher Erasmus had communication with Luther, and they both discussed whether people have a free will, yes or no. And Erasmus said yes, and Luther said no, everything is predestined. And then Calvin went even further. But there is, of course, still a discussion here now. That people say, well, there is no free will. But actually, if you follow the Bible, it says we are created in the image of God. And if that means we have a free will, but just you have to use it in the right way, because freedom always comes with responsibility. You cannot have freedom and do everything what you want anytime. No, there is a kind of responsibility. There's a kind of law. That's the law of karma, actually. What is also important, the more awareness, the more karma. If you are aware that you do something wrong, your burden of karma is much more heavy than when you don't know what you do That's maybe also quite understandable. If you give a child and it sets something on fire, etc., you give matches, you cannot blame that child so much than an adult. And that's with anything which people are doing. Here you can see also a Bible version, he who sins becomes a slave. Examples of karma, because karma actually is people as a total, as a civilization, or as a group, or as a country, can also, as a total, create karma. For instance, Pompeii, it was found out that Pompeii was the brothel of Rome at that time. Any sex was allowed, everything, there was really no moral behavior at that time. And of course, for some people it might sound strange that this can react in a kind of karmic lesson. But this is also what is written in the Bible also with Sodom and Gomorrah. But what about the Maya culture? Still there's a big discussion in scientific research. What created the Mayans, who had such a high civilization? They even knew about black holes, about the exact distance to the sun. They had a high level of knowledge and consciousness, and suddenly it disappeared. But it's also found out that Mayans, their civilization did some quite bad things. Tens of thousands and even graves were found with hundreds of thousands of human sacrifices. They cut your heart out and that's sacrificed. That is very much karma making, of course. There is also in the Bible, but also other books. Not only the Bible, many old religious books are writing about immoral behavior in the Great Flood. When I was in America, I talked with Native American people, and believe it or not, they said, we can remember the Great Flood because it was from father to son and mother to daughter. Every time back, the story was told. But like I said, also when you are having a wrong mindset, I hate you, for instance, or I would have that type of mindset, it comes back to yourself. So it's like the figure 8 flow, it always comes back to yourself. If you do that, you actually create your own karma. What can you do about it? That's the most important thing, of course. Then here you can see very famous, the 7 chakras. And here the heart chakra, and many times you hear this, sometimes fake stories like, you have to think about your heart, you have to listen to your heart. Yeah, what do you mean? What can I do with that? Well, actually, you have 3 chakras below your heart, and you have 3 chakras above your heart. And your heart is in the middle. And your heart is the nexus of the figure 8 flow, exactly where the 2 circles, spirit and matter, touch each other. And your heart, actually, it's amazing that in the 21st century, still at universities these days, I talk with many doctors and say, that's odd. Still you are taught that your heart is a pump. Your heart is a pump which pumps your whole blood through your body, which is not true. Strange, of course. Yes, your heart beats, of course, and your heart makes the first, like a, how to say it, in an engine, in a car engine, the first, the bougie, the spark plug, that is what the heart is doing. First beat, but then the blood takes over, because the blood is yin-yang. It has electromagnetic force. And the electromagnetic force causes the whole blood to go through your veins. Because, you know, you can look it up in the internet. 110,000 kilometers of veins are in your body. And your heart can never do that. So it says, it is something different, because like everything else, like I showed you the coin, it's matter and spirit, everything is 2 sides. Also the heart, like any other organ also, has a material and a spiritual function. And the spiritual function of your heart is the most important function you have in your body. Do you know that when you are created in the womb of your mother, the first thing which starts to develop is your heart? Was that known? The first thing, from the heart, everything else starts. That's quite interesting, huh? And your heart is actually a sense. It's like, but much more wider frequency it can hold than your eyes. And we know that our eyes, and eagle can see more than we can see with our eyes. A dog, go back to the dog, can smell more than we can smell, and etc. But we have something else, we have our heart. Our heart can sense much bigger frequency than our eyes, our ears, etc., all the things. And our heart is communicating to each other. We are communicating. Your heart is vibrating, and it's let's say, getting information and giving information. And in your heart, the next to the figure 8 flow is also your soul. And your soul is also your consciousness. And you know your innate consciousness that it's better not to kill somebody, better not to do things wrong, etc. That's why listen to your heart. But we have lost that feeling. We don't know anymore. It's so much, we are so much rationalized that we have lost that. But you can really develop it again. And that's not for this presentation. I will, if Robert allows me, I can do it again the next time. How can you develop that you really listen to your heart, that you really can hear the beat and hear the voice, because there is a voice, definitely. And then you can also hear when you're doing something, no, this is not good. This is, I should refrain from it. Or yes, continue, etc. This is so important. It's a guide for you to do the good things. Because, and the good things is always not that doing the good things as you think from a material way, but also from a spiritual way, from thinking, your intentions, etc. Creative virtuous mindset is very important. And virtuous, because it's always the heart and the head and the hands together. And the virtuous mindset is so important. But that will be given that information by your heart. Walk, talk, and reflect. We have, when I talked with Indian people, they said, 2 things we are not doing anymore. We don't think anymore, and we don't dream anymore. Because thinking is a different process. When in the morning, for instance, you woke up and you start and you look in the drawer, what shall I put on in clothes, or what shall I eat, or etc. That's not thinking. Thinking is really deeply thinking processes. We hardly don't do it anymore. But reflect on what is in the Jewish religion, the Sabbath. It is actually, the reason for it is, you can work 6 days a week. You can do whatever you want, 6 days a week. 1 day a week, relax, reflect what you did in the last 6 days, whether you did wrong or right, and start to improve it for the next week. That is actually the basic knowledge about the Sabbath. And when you do that, and you create good balance also, which is good karma, you balance your karma. And that is so important, because that will change your destiny, definitely. I would like to ask you something, because this is so important and I would like you to remember it. Can we do it together? What is standing here on this screen? It's, yeah, one, yes. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. It's really such a simple thing, it's so important. Because actually, your thoughts, there's one step before that, that's your intentions. What is your intention? Do you have a good intention in your heart or a bad intention? And it follows a whole pattern. So important, because that becomes your destiny. It's from Lao Tzu, one of my favorite philosophers, Chinese philosopher. And before I finish, I have one more thing. Another famous person, which I like very much, Gandhi. He was a statesman, he was a lawyer, but he was also a philosopher, a great philosopher. Be the change you want to see in the world. Pick up that can on the beach. And don't say, well, I didn't drop it, let somebody else pick it up. No. Create a kind of mindset that you really try to do something positive, and you can see, if you create a mindset, it will suddenly start to change yourself. And you will create another way of thinking, another way of acting, which is creating positive karma, and you balance your karma, and you can, let's say, change your destiny. Thank you very much.